Hey everyone, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Charlie, and this is the Mood Booster podcast.
In this podcast, Charlie and I come together to discuss any and everything we go through in our lives, looking for those highs, those lows, but really importantly, just reflecting on the everyday and finding the joy in those everyday moments.
We're not here to preach, just here to connect, reflect, and hopefully give you guys a little bit of a lift wherever you are.
Yeah, you can expect stories that spark something, science that makes sense, and just a conversation between two friends that feels like you're catching up with an old companion and just having a lovely conversation.
This episode is on positive self-talk. It's a great episode, isn't it?
It is a brilliant episode. We really go into what positive self-talk means. Actually, also coming from 2 weeks ago talking about criticism and negative self-talk, actually how we can balance that and override some of those thoughts while giving space for negative self-talk, but actually just challenging some of that and really working on how we can, see ourselves in a better light.
As you just said, we actually look at evidence that can say how we can have better positive self-talk, look into whether we actually have control over our thoughts versus our feelings, and just really look at what science is saying, whilst also looking at our own experiences and just sort of, comparing them. It's a fantastic episode. Hopefully you guys love it. I think we should boost some moods and let's go.
Let's do it.
Hello everyone.
Oh,
Jinx.
Oh, welcome to
the Mood Booster podcast.
Episode
13.
13. Episode 13.
Welcome back to episode 13. We are now well into our fourth month of recording.
Fourth month
Of recording.
Because we've done 3 months and now it's
done 3 months.
Yes.
Happy welcome on our 4th month.
Oh wow.
How are we all doing?
Exciting.
Welcome everyone.
Very good.
Yeah, this is great.
The excitement doesn't go away.
We were just saying we were a little bit nervous actually prior to starting, weren't we?
Look at that, we're nervous.
Always are.
Yeah, because like you just said, I don't think it goes away because we are just excited to do something and to do it well.
We are, aren't we?
Yeah, and this week we are talking about.
Positive self-talk.
Positive self-talk.
Oh, it's gonna be an interesting one, guys.
Important.
Before we talk about that,
yes.
How was your week, Marcus?
How was my week?
How's your week?
We're getting straight into it.
I want to know. Tell me.
My week since last recording has been good.
The big words are coming out today, aren't they?
Did the triathlon, Blenheim Triathlon. Woo! Round of applause for us, please.
Well done, everyone.
Charlie's first triathlon.
Yep.
Congratulations, kind sir.
Well done.
My second, número dos. And yeah, it was really fun, Blenheim Triathlon. So we drove down Scroot on Saturday morning. Dream guest on my podcast. Sorry about it, guys. So yeah, drove over on Saturday morning, and just had a great time. It was raining, but I feel like it helped with
it was raining,
vibes,
it was chucking
the
down.
energy, the nerves, all the things. It was really fun, and as a triathlon goes, we had the swim and then the cycle and then the run, and I was just really pleased with the whole thing. I got in my own head about the swim. I'm a strong swimmer, but when I get into the triathlon, apparently, because this is the second time of 2 that it's happened, I just am in the water not freaking out, but then I can't breathe, then I start freaking out because I can't breathe, and I think it's just a vicious cycle. And then because I can't breathe, I'm having to lift my head every 2 strokes, or even more frequently than that. So then my swimming just isn't as strong as it usually is. Having said that, I still did 750 meters in 15 minutes. So it's not the slowest, but still. And then, I was just getting in my own head about it. But then after the swim, I need to figure that out, guys. So if you've got any tips, if any triathletes are listening, let me know how I can not freak out while swimming, because I am great at swimming. It's not the people around me. It's not that I was navigating around people. It's just something else which I can't put my finger on. Anyway, did the cycle, great time. Cycling in the rain. It was all either uphill pretty much or downhill. A nice little 7k loop. Just found it so fun, just constantly passing people. What was lovely about Blenheim was that it was just, I didn't know, having only done 2 triathlons, whether they're all like this, but it was just a lot of entry-level people, and it was beginner-friendly. There were people on all sorts of bikes, all sorts of abilities, all sorts of outfits. Not everyone in their tri-suits on their
spectrum, isn't it?
£3,000 to £4,000 bikes. It was just
way more than that. Some bikes are nearly £10,000 mark.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is not everyone. Most people weren't in those, which was nice. And it was just lovely, sort of saying, "Come on, well done," whatever, to people like I enjoy doing, and people reciprocating that. A couple of people who looked at me and basically spat at my feet when I said that, but that's them, and let them.
Let them.
Yeah, and then the run was super fun as well. And just I came to life in the run because I like running and was just sort of having a great time. Didn't want it to finish. So that was the triathlon, which was really
good,
fun.
wasn't
How
it?
did you find your first triathlon?
Oh, I'm just gonna quickly jump in before I say about the triathlon.
Jump in.
Guys, I'm just gonna jump in. We are in our usual setting here in the room. One thing has changed, or one thing is out of place in this setting, I should say.
Setting.
In this setting, one thing is intentionally out of place.
Ooh, mystical.
So if you're listening on Spotify, hop over to our YouTube.
Mysterious.
Mr. Mysterious Girl. I wanna get close to
Mysterious
you.
girl. I wanna get close to you.
Peter Andre.
Yeah.
Anyway, hop over to our YouTube, see what you think is out of place, and if you guess the comments correctly, Marcus will buy you a coffee.
Coffee on me.
Coffee on Marcus.
Coffee date with me.
Coffee date with Marcus himself. Marcus Kuss.
Marcus Kuss.
Marcusy.
Marcus Kussy. Marcusy. Jesus.
Jesus. Anyway.
Other profits are available.
Let it... What, Marcusy?
No, Jesus.
Oh. What profit's called Marcusy? Anyway, hop over to YouTube if you're not on there. Let us know from this frame what is out of place.
And I'll buy you a coffee
Marcus
if
will
you
buy you a
put it
coffee.
correctly in the comments.
Type in the comments and you'll get a free coffee.
Yes.
Regardless, the triathlon.
Regardless.
It's all about balance, really.
Yeah.
The triathlon, how did I find it? I was nervous beforehand.
Exactly that.
You can tell when I'm nervous, I think, because walking up to the lakeside, I was a bit freaking out, saying, "Where is all the swim caps? Where are the swim caps?"
Oh my god.
Being annoying, objectively.
If you asked
I
me
think.
once, you asked me about 60,000 times.
I was freaking out because my hair was going to go up my face and
His hair.
my hair, and I wanted the swim cap to make sure that this first swim went well, and I wasn't seeing where the swim caps were, so I was freaking out and asking you. I think it was just nerves.
Yeah. One thing about our dynamic is one of us is prepared usually, and one of us is less prepared usually.
Yeah.
So one of us read the instructions, or
I
the
asked
race guide the night prior.
Do not even try to say that. You said
one of us read the race guide the night prior. One of us didn't. So I read in the race. One of us read in the race guide that the swim caps will be given out at the lakefront. I concretely read that, and I said they'll be fine. They'll be there. Obviously, Charlie just naturally being nervous and maybe potentially not having read the race.
You
guide.
said you were going to read it, so I didn't have to.
Yes, exactly.
Don't say that.
Exactly.
Absolute chump.
So
Chump
when I
form.
said I'd read it in the race guide, we'll be good. They'll be there.
Yeah.
Because you were nervous, that wasn't enough for you to be confident that
Yeah.
there were, and you asked numerous times, and you were getting more and more nervous and agitated, to the point where I was then beginning to doubt myself that I'd read that in the race guide because, and they were there, so it was good.
No, yeah, they were there indeed. Red race caps.
Yeah, lovely red
race
cap.
caps.
Zone 3, great
Zone
brand.
3.
Other race cap brands are available.
Hell yeah.
Um,
So we started the swim, didn't we? Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, I love the swim. Usually, everyone who I've asked about a triathlon says that the swim is the hardest part. You come out of breath, tired, fatigued, or just the whole thing was terrible. So I was very much expecting it. So when I went in, breezing past, I thought, because you had warned me about 2 minutes prior, just make sure not to go too quick. Everyone always goes way too quickly. Start small and just build up,
warm up into it.
Warm up into it, and then the cycle is where you're actually going to take over people. So it's fine to go fairly slowly here. So I started off behind you fairly slowly, just feeling good, and just felt like I could go for it. So absolutely rushed on forward, overtook almost everyone.
Yeah.
Not quite. Marcus is a little bit.
What?
You feeling some sort of way about me overtaking you in the swim?
No, it was more the hitting my feet from behind as I was trying to swim.
When you're going too slow.
Saying, "Come on, let's go."
I wasn't saying that.
You did say, "Come on, let's go."
When was that?
At the
What,
beginning.
whilst I was swimming?
Yeah.
Before we went in?
No, when we were swimming.
Yeah. Well, you were saying for the whole run, so I think it was fun. I was saying it for the swim.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what you said. I'm feeling some type of way.
It's fine if you want to talk about it.
No, for me it was the not, and it's not even. It wasn't even anything. But when you were hitting my feet, I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm trying here. And in the water, it's just a bit,
It wasn't intentional. It was more just the fact that we had like 10 people around us.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. No, I'm not feeling any type of way. It was good.
Okay.
You're a fast little swimmer, and it's
Little,
good to
yeah,
be good at things.
completely.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So had loads of fun on the swim.
Mm.
I was breezing through it. Ended up finishing the swim in
Oh,
a
well
nice,
done
nice
for
time.
finishing.
Thank you for finishing. Finished the swim and got to the end. The run from the swim to the bikes for me was almost the hardest part.
Yes.
My legs felt
My
so heavy.
goodness. I
It's like a
don't
400
think
meter run.
I'm not a seasoned triathlete, and I know you're
No.
not either. But I don't think the transition's supposed to be that long.
Yeah.
It was like a 600 meter, if not longer, run between
Yeah.
the water and the transition zone. I was like, obviously you're out the water, dizzy, out of breath, all those things. I was just like, what is going on? And me being me and you being you,
Yeah.
we weren't just gonna half do it, so we ran all the way up to the transition zone where
Oh
a
shit!
lot
I
a
might have
lot
got
of
on that
people were
bike.
walking,
Yeah.
and I think it shows that a lot of people were walking because it was so far,
Yeah.
and all uphill, obviously coming back out of the lake. But yeah, it was tiring, wasn't it?
It made no sense, but that was tough. I would say.
Tough times never last.
Tough times never last. So we got to the bikes, hopped on the bikes, and that for me was the good moment, wasn't it? Downhill, one straight wind. The wind was behind us, and we just absolutely bombed it.
Yeah,
Just let go and just cycled so quickly.
yeah.
That was great.
I get a lot of my joy from obviously seeing other people have a nice time.
Yeah.
And one of my peaks of the triathlon experience was there was a certain stretch where it was downhill and just clear and a straight road. And for 2 of the 3 laps, Charlie just absolutely nailed it past and was just
Yeah.
like cheering and screaming like
Woo!
yeah, and it was just really
Yeah.
nice seeing how happy he was doing it.
Great. The speed
yeah,
I had on that bike was crazy.
it was lovely.
Lap 2, I think. And then again, as you said, the rain just pelting us in our faces really added to the whole energy in the atmosphere. I didn't think I was going to get that into it or that competitive because we weren't going for a time. Halfway around the second loop, I was screaming, "On your right!" to these people. I actually clocked at myself. What are you doing, man? Just this is your first race. Relax into it. I was screaming at these people to move on, like out of the way
Yeah.
because they were just weaving in and out.
Why not?
Why not? I was just
It's
getting
also
into it.
safety. You know, it's a very
course.
tight course, that one at Blenheim.
Yeah.
So I was finding myself saying on your right lots, even just preemptively, even if they weren't looking like they're moving, just because you never know. It's better
Yeah.
to be safe on those bikes.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Especially when it's raining and slippery.
Of course.
Slip sliding.
Yeah.
And
The
then
run, that was hard.
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that was tough for me. When I feel like how you were just saying about me in the swimming, saying "Let's go, come on," that was me when you were running. You were like, "Come on,
Yeah.
everyone, come on, Charlie, you're good." I'm not okay. Stop talking.
Yeah.
I was not in the frame of mind
Yeah.
just to hear it. I was in a really bad way.
Yeah, valid. And there
The
was one
hardest
point
5Ks.
I was trying to do all the different motivational things throughout the run. And I could see
Yeah.
you were in a certain type of way, so I just then put my energy into like supporting other people around us.
Yeah.
Being like, well done, every person, and making a bit of friendly chit chat as we were running past people.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, I was like, okay, what else can I try? So there was this guy that you'd already said you'd been passing him in and out of
On the bikes.
bike, like you'd been constantly passing.
He was
out
taking
each
over
other.
me. I was taking over him. Yeah.
And I could see him. I was like, okay, Charlie, he's only 100 meters ahead of us. I was like, what are your thoughts on passing this guy out in the last kilometer before we finish? And you just said something very like
Standoffish.
very
Yeah.
sort of abruptly. I'm not feeling competitive today. If you want to be competitive, you go off or something like that. And I was like,
I was not in the state of mind to hear, "Let's push it harder," because I was in
Okay.
such a bad way anyway. You know, come
Yeah.
on, let's beat this person.
you go be competitive. I'm not doing that or something. And I was like, all right.
Sorry for that one.
We'll
I was
try
in a
something
bad way.
else.
Apologies.
That's all right. Don't worry. You saw me at the swim. Literally got out of the water in my head of the swim, and I was just. We all know I get in my own head very much, and my brain's going a million miles an hour, just being sort of thinking the things, but then thinking about how I'm thinking about the things, and then thinking about how I'm thinking about the things, and just being all of the things.
I'm not thinking.
So I was frustrated in the moment that I was getting in my own head about swimming. Also frustrated that Charlie, which is completely illogical, but Charlie, we've been training together but hadn't been training anywhere near as long as me, had just completely overtaken me and then had just like gone ahead and finished, and I was just there like, what is going on? But that's just an innate competitive thing, and also comes back to, like I said to Charlie, had always been rubbish at sports when I was younger, and feel like I'd had to train so much harder to be average than the average person, if that makes sense. So I had to train so much harder. So then it was kind of fulfilling that silly childhood insecurity of, see, look, I've been doing this for so much longer, and then this person just comes in and is immediately like, okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye. I'm swimming really fast, and then was just. But then was thinking that, and in the moment thinking that, being winding myself up, being like, why can't you just be happy that it's going really well for
Judging
him?
yourself for thinking a certain way.
And it's just so silly because obviously, objectively, I am that way, and seeing him so happy on the bike was like an example of how I do really want you to succeed and do really well. But just I think it was more coming from my own annoyance of my feeling like I have a lacking ability and winding myself up in the swim and getting my out of my depths and not a panic attack, but getting in a bit of a way. I was just then being annoyed at myself and projecting that onto you doing really well. But immediately clocked and was like, and in the moment was still annoyed, but within myself it's like, well done on that swim, you did so well.
I could tell it was
But
sending
from,
come on, force yourself to be happy.
yeah,
I could tell.
because I know logically that I truly believe that, and it was just something going on in my brain. And
It'd be
then
good if there was a podcast about positive self-talk, wouldn't there?
it would
It'd be
be.
great.
Hold that thought.
No, I know.
But I think overall it went really well,
Yeah.
and you should be very proud of yourself, and I'm proud
I'm
of
proud.
myself.
I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I'm
An
proud of
elite
us.
day, an elite bucket list thing ticked off.
And proud of us that Blenheim invited us
Yeah.
after having done Oxford together for some social media work.
Yeah.
But they invited us back. The same company that arranged all of these different races, they also arranged Blenheim Triathlon.
Yeah.
Asked us there, and that we've made a really fun video that's engaged with people, and
People
that
liked
people
it,
are. Someone commented on the video saying, "You cheered me on up the hill. I'm so glad I found this video. Thank you for cheering me on up the hill," and that made me so happy because. Just the power of, I guess, social media and connecting
It's
people.
great,
and
wasn't
whatnot.
it?
So
We actually got asked for a YouTube channel as well.
yeah, someone asked us to make a YouTube channel. So
Charlie and Marcus YouTube channel.
Watch
Maybe
this
some more,
space.
some more personal vlogs. Maybe.
yeah, it made me really happy. And then
Big things
obviously after that we went to a bit of a work retreat.
We
let's
did.
call it.
We did. We had a lot on our list to do for work for the podcast
Yes,
and everything in general.
lots of things.
Lots of things.
Lots
Some which we can and can't speak about.
Well, in general, I guess we can be we can speak generally.
We can.
There's just lots of calibration we were recalibrating we were doing, even
We
though
were.
we both say we know that we're on the same page and are aligned with most things. It's better to not, especially sort of when you're working on a project or business or whatever. It's never good to operate on assumption. So we might assume that, but it's good that we can sit down and actually verbalize and write and calibrate and recalibrate. And we found that naturally 95% of what we were doing we were in alignment with, but it's important to make sure that that's the case, but then also be proactive in, okay, this is where we're at, let's do a stock take, where can we go moving forward.
It needs its own time, doesn't it? It's funny, even though we live with each other now, how things, just small little things can, unspoken things can build up, which just lead to it requiring a bit of a stock take day anyway. So whether it's, the future of possibly getting people on here or whatever it might be, little things that we both know we want and both aligned in, it's good just to give it its own time where we can actually speak about it and plan it as well.
And energy.
As well.
Energy is what's
pour the
important.
energy into it.
Yeah.
I know I did, and I think I can speak on your behalf as well. Came away with even more energy for this, even more of a vision, even more of a direction, knowing exactly where we're going. So
yeah, I think it's
big things coming.
Very exciting. I think it's part of like the being intentional with everything.
Yes,
because when like you say, we live together and we just do it on a daily basis and we get into the motions of it. And granted, being kind to ourselves, we have just moved house and all those things. So there is that. But I think, when you are in the motions of it, it can just become sort of second nature, and therefore you don't really think about it as much. And with something like this, where you're wanting something to succeed and you want it to do well and to grow and all those things, you can't afford to just be complacent or let it be cruise control. You have to constantly be intentional with every move you make. So it's good that we had that, and that was a really nice little cabin stay in the countryside. Amazing cabin, brilliant Airbnb. I would highly recommend this place.
Mark, thank you.
Beautiful.
If Mark or the girls are listening, thank you for letting us stay.
Oh yeah, we told Mark
did
about
tell
the
Mark.
podcast and his daughters.
He was saying,
I guess
my daughters want to see you guys on the computer on the online. Can you let us know? Like, Mark, don't worry about it. Great, Mark's lovely.
Yeah,
we will put a recommendation in the Airbnb down below.
So yes, So that was our
Lovely
weeks.
work retreat, wasn't it? That
Uh,
was great.
it did get us, and in that we were also planning positive self-talk.
We were indeed. What we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Good segue.
So to lead positive self-talk, I've got
Mm.
a question for you.
Okay.
Now you can take your time with it because I want to hear honestly.
Yeah.
What are three things about your character
Yeah.
that you love and you're very proud of? Three, please.
Three things about my character that I love. Okay.
While he's thinking about it, I shall do some ASMR. No, basically, I just wanted to get into what.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
That's anything interesting there?
No, you carry on.
No worries. I love my confidence. And it's something that over the past few years has only become more authentic as well. I know when I was younger, it was probably steeped in a little bit of who I thought I should have been. I know I've talked about this before, but for myself, over the past few years, or even recently over the past year, I've only grown more into my actual self, which has allowed me to be so much more confident because I know myself better. Whether that's my pitfalls, the things I'm good at, what I like, what I don't like. I know myself so much better now, just through a lot of introspection, whether it's journaling as well. I've gotten to know myself a lot better, truly. And there's nothing really that I shy away from or I'm not focusing on or don't want to look at, which means that because I know myself better, I can show up more confidently in any situation. And that's something that I quite like, is that when I show up in a social situation or with anyone, I can just truly feel like myself, and that allows this me to feel confident in my own self as well, I think.
Nice.
So that's one thing that
Self-awareness.
my self-awareness, I'd say. Yeah, or just, yeah, I like my confidence about myself,
Yeah.
which has definitely grown in a much more authentic way. Um, I think I'm good with people as well, which I do like. I think I'm quite good at making friends, quite good at sort of being emotionally intelligent and reading what other people are thinking or ways to navigate social settings as well. It allows me to, yeah, make some good friends, make some good company. So when we're traveling or when I'm anywhere, I think I can be quite good at, you know, speaking with people. And that's something that I quite like as well.
Nice.
Something that I'm quite proud of. A third thing about myself.
Yeah, about yourself.
About myself.
Have a little think.
I am proud and I really like my relationship with my family.
Okay, nice.
I know it's not necessarily about myself, but I feel like I've also had a part to play in that. I think that's fair. Yeah, my family means so much to me, and it's such a core value to what I hold close to myself, especially as I've grown up and gotten older. And I, even over the past year, just through what I'm doing, the more I'm in London, I've been able to be around them a lot more as well, and I'm really proud of the sort of framework that we've been able to build around each other, the how close we are authentically. I'm really, really proud of that, and I love that about myself, that I'm able to be as open, emotionally vulnerable, close, and just caring to all my family as well. I love that part of me. So
Nice.
yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. Can I frame that back on you?
Of course you can.
What are three things that you're proud of or that you love about yourself?
Firstly, my open-mindedness.
Okay.
I think I'm very proud of that quality. I am I try to be very open-minded, and in line with that, I think an adjacent quality, but I'll put them in the same, is my empathy. I'm an empathetic person, but because I think because I'm open-minded, I'm constantly trying to think of every perspective and every person's mindsets and every instance, and just different. I know that every single person has a whole life and a whole set of schemas, perspectives, skills, potential trauma, all of those things. So every single person is just navigating their life in the best way that they know how. And obviously, not everyone always acts with kindness or compassion or whatever, but I'm still open-minded that regardless, most people are just trying their best, and that lends itself to also trying to be less judgmental. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, because we all fall have innate things where we immediately stereotype and jump to that, but I try and challenge those. And that's where, about people's lifestyles, people's ways of behaving. It's not harming me. It's not my business. I'm thinking about that. I see, people constantly critiquing each other online or dogging on each other. And that's another thing, with like mob mentality or council culture, all those things. I'm not supporting people that do things wrong, but I'm also trying to understand and not just trying to just jump on a mob mentality situation.
Jump on the bandwagon.
Which I also think is partly why I'm in forensic psychology as well, and work to understand and support people who offend and offenders, because I've had strangers come up to me in the past being like, why do you want to work with those? All we need is just harsher punishment. These people don't deserve our compassion.
Wow.
Literally, a stranger in a jewelry shop in Kingston, of all places, said that to me, and I was like, well, firstly, I don't remember asking your opinion of my career, but secondly, you don't know what you're talking about. But I think coming back out, I think partly why I lend myself to that is because of my open-mindedness, and I'm to the extent where people who are offending and literally hurting other people, I'm still trying to understand where they're coming from, what their trauma is, those sorts of things. And that's an example of sort of my open-mindedness, which I am proud of.
You should be.
Something else. I am extremely compassionate and kind. Sometimes to my own detriment, but it's not I'm not here to be detrimental.
We're not here to criticize.
I want to look after people, and I care for people, and I want people to do well, and people that I care about to do well. And I the people who I decide, are in that sort of arena of people who I'm close with, I champion and just want the best for them, and will try what I can within my capacity to do to support that and promote that. So yeah, I think that also lends with loyalty in that sense as well, like an avid loyalty. I think loyalty and integrity in that is so important in someone. So therefore, in myself, I'm extremely loyal. And look after people around me, which I think is amazing about myself, and I look for that in friends as well, because it's the reciprocity. You look for things in people that you value, because Anyway, I'm waffling. What's the third thing? I am extremely what's the word? Innovative. And what's the word? I wouldn't say entrepreneurial, but maybe entrepreneurial.
I'd say you are,
with less of the financial savvy side or the business side. I'm inventive. I think critically. I'm thinking, okay, how can this be redone? How can new ways of this be carried out, whether that's in a working capacity or creating things like creating the Monday Mood Booster Run Club. Just I find in settings where there's a group of people working together, I'm often the one leading.
It's not a bad thing to say at all.
Or leading or thinking, okay, setting the workload, or finding a way to do things more efficiently and effectively, and to optimize the outputs and all those things. So I guess that's more of sort of a work-driven thing as opposed to my own personal qualities. But I have initiative, and I'm very innovative in that sense, which I think has got me very far.
I love that. Yeah.
Got me a PhD, and has got me here. Has got me a run club. It's got me all these things. I'm very good at my paid job. It's a role that I kind of made for myself over the years with support from my employers, and I think I'm very good at all those things. So,
I love that. Yeah, all true. I can all say that's all.
Thank you.
All true. I was saying to you, it's quite funny. Whenever some people hear about the Run Club, you have, from what I've witnessed, people have a 50-50 reaction. Half people are like, oh, that's so cool. Half people are like, oh, run clubs are these dating sites now. All this sort of waffle that people say. There's run clubs everywhere. I think you said there's about 200 run clubs in London.
That's completely. I have no
Fair
idea.
enough.
Yeah,
However many, maybe a few hundred run clubs.
Yeah.
Probably we can guess that. There's 8 million people in London.
I've again no idea.
There's millions of people who live in London. If you think about it, 200 people, let's say 200 to 300 people started a club. What fraction that is out of millions of people?
Yeah.
It's cool that you're one of those 200-300 people.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty cool. I do love myself, even though I look like a burnt chicken nugget.
That's a great reference there from you. That's a
Yeah.
great reference. Well, I think it's probably also
Thank you.
important that we say why we're talking about positive self-talk.
Yeah. Do you mind
as
if I
well.
lead on this one?
Please.
Sorry to just interject, but I feel
Thank you
like
for your
it's
apology.
I feel like it's important.
Okay.
So obviously, a couple of weeks ago, I spent quite a lot of time being real and authentic about my negative self schemas or self esteem, let's say.
Yeah.
And I did that for no particular reason other than to just do what this podcast is here to do. And I had an experience that triggered some internal beliefs that have always been there. And as such, wanted to talk about it because it helps to talk about it and it takes the power away. And that's exactly what we're here to do. I have had some very supportive messages, but also people saying it's really sad to hear you think like that about yourself. Which is the case, and I know that it is sad, but I also believe that we as human beings, I know as we as human beings, which we'll get onto today, are born with, are hardwired to think negatively, not only about situations, but about ourselves. And yes, it's sad to hear people you love saying those things about themselves, but it's a reality that people have those thoughts. Now, what we do with that reality is a different thing, and that's why we're here today to talk about positive self-talk. But yeah, I just wanted to, for the sake of also balance, make sure that it was known, and I think as a really nice activity, talk positively about ourselves and
I love that.
explore how that can be helpful and what that actually means and what it looks like in terms of research, but also our own experiences. Because yeah, I don't want to portray. I think often also, as we're getting used to destigmatizing mental health and all these things, when someone comes online and says, you know, I've got this problem, or I have this negative self-belief, because people don't readily talk about that and availably talk about that, it seems like a big thing, and it's still like, oh my god, this person thinks that they're ugly, this person thinks whatever, this person has anxiety or depression, that's a big thing. But actually, everyone or a lot of people are navigating this on a daily basis, but just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to be like a big, oh, Marcus walks around daily thinking he's this and this, but because I've mentioned it, that it's just that I've mentioned it, I've taken the power away from it. It doesn't need to be bigger than that, but because, like I say, we're not used to these sorts of conversations, it still feels like a really big thing maybe to people, for people to listen to.
Yeah.
So in the sake of balance, it will just be really nice to think about what we like about ourselves and talk about actually how positive self-talk can be helpful, but also how it can counteract and work against some of these more innate negative self-beliefs.
Yeah. We had a very interesting conversation at the cabin, which we can go into a little bit more later on. When we were at the cabin, we went for a curry, lovely curry. And for the entire dinner, for about 2 hours, I think, we were speaking about thoughts versus emotions, how much control we have, whether they're hardwired, as you said, you know, our own self-talk in our own head, where that comes from, the inputs, how much control we have over our own self-talk, and the effect that has on our lives in general, because our own perspectives realistically are our own reality. So it's, do we have control over our thoughts as well? But what you said there is just speaking about them, negative or positive, takes the power away from them. It's what we always say with everything. Everyone has them, and ruminating on them, thinking that they're not okay, judging them and not speaking them if they're there, which they probably are for everyone, just means that you're in a prison against them. Whereas speaking about them takes all the power away, will allow more room for more positive thoughts as well, which will have a better shape on as well.
Exactly.
Which is great that we're speaking about it.
Exactly that.
It's probably prudent, love that word, probably prudent that we actually define what positive self-talk actually is before we go into it.
Yeah.
So I'll give a little bit of a definition here. So what is positive self-talk?
Let me just, before we go.
No worries. I'm trying to get...
If you're watching on YouTube, I had my iPad last week. Charlie was getting FOMO from the iPad. Because it's really helpful to have this anchor, and we do want to make sure that what we're speaking about isn't just two guys waffling on.
Of
and
course.
our perspectives are very important, and I value our perspectives.
Yeah.
But we also want to make sure that we are speaking to evidence all along the way.
Exactly.
So with my iPad last week,
I saw it. I was there with a paper and pen. What am I doing? The old way. So I think it's good that we're both here. As you just said, we don't want to be, waffling here. We want to be giving you guys, actual science, good evidence of what we're talking about, whilst also leading on our own experiences.
Yes, so
Yeah.
sorry,
Is
but
it alright if
I just wanted to mention.
So, is it cool if I? Yeah.
No, I'm gonna carry on. No, please do, please do. Sorry.
So, positive self talk. Positive self talk refers to the internal dialogue that supports, encourages, and motivates you, especially during times of challenge. It contrasts with negative self talk, which is self critical, pessimistic, or self doubting. Psychologists often frame self talk as a powerful cognitive strategy that shapes self esteem, mood, performance, and resilience.
Yep.
So it's all things that we speak about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's stands out there is the cognitive strategy, which is in line with the cognitive behavioural theory.
Exactly that.
Good old Beck, 1979.
Beck, yes.
Beck, one of the founders, if not the founding father of cognitive behavioural
CBT.
therapy
Mm-hmm.
theory, and then CBT in line with that, cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yep.
But yeah, the cognitive behavioural theory being the idea that obviously we have cognition and the way we perceive and then think about the stimuli that we're perceiving, and therefore that thinking process is the cognition, sculpts the way that we then our reaction to it and our perspectives and our emotions around whatever that stimulus is. So our cognition is something we can control of, and we can have control of, and we can reframe, which then allows us to the response to whatever that stimulus is to then also be controlled and reframed by our cognition.
Okay.
So when we talk about positive self-talk and things, we have stimuli that might be someone saying something negative to us, like the example a couple of weeks ago, saying you look like a camel. It's up to us from Beck's perspective in cognitive behavioral theory to then take that in and challenge that. And yes, we might have an internal schema or an internal belief that aligns with that, but we also have higher order thinking, which is our cognition, which we can then use to challenge that and say, actually, logically, I know that that's not the case. I have this evidence. I have this understanding also of myself. I'm going to challenge this knee-jerk reaction within my brain that thinks it's true and think otherwise, and allow myself to give myself positive affirmations, positive thoughts, and speak positively to myself, because then it will reframe how I think about or how I respond to that situation, in this case being told I look like a camel. So I guess really spelling it out, it's you look like a camel, situation A, not cognitively restructuring it or having positive self-talk like I did. I've always thought I'm ugly. I always thought this, that, and the third about myself, which I won't necessarily go into today, but therefore it's true, and this person said it, he must just be being honest, and every other 100 person that said I look good is lying. That's endorsing that, and you're not it's your innate sort of response, and it's your knee-jerk reaction. When you then have positive self-talk, which is a higher order thinking, like you just said, and the cognition, it's bringing that in and saying, yeah, God, that might be true. Actually, pause. No, I have this evidence. Charlie's mum said I'm handsome. People have given me compliments in the past. I love my eyes. I love my nose. These things about me are objectively, in my opinion, true. So not objectively, but these things about me I think are true. I have beautiful eyes. Therefore, I'm not an ugly person. And it's actively taking the step and the time to think those things and bring that information into the forefront of your brain to challenge the knee-jerk reaction of, he's right, I am ugly, and really working on that. So then your response is not, I'm going to sit and cry in a restaurant and be sad about it. I'm going to sit in my confidence and know my worth. And
from just hearing that, then I then go back to our conversation in the curry house and challenge you again. From what you've just said there, is it fair to say that then we have the agency, we have the ability to control our thoughts, the internal dialogue, to then restructure how we think about ourselves?
According to cognitive behavioural theory, yes. Now, what I will say is, as with everything, we must think critically all the time. Cognitive behavioural theory is only one theory of hundreds, if not thousands, within psychology. I don't think we don't always have the ability to do that.
To control our thoughts.
Sometimes we don't have the resilience. Sometimes we're exhausted. Sometimes whatever. Sometimes it's so strong. We might have had a trauma trauma exposure in our past that means we can't override that, whatever. I don't necessarily think we always, personally, and this is a big statement because it's challenging CBT, which is one of the, everyone knows CBT. I don't think we always have the ability to challenge our thoughts and reframe them around something, and that's why CBT doesn't work for everyone, for example, or for every psychopathology or every illness or ailment. Moreover, I also challenge it. I fully endorse it and think it's makes so much sense. And I mean, it's the biggest form of therapy that everyone knows what CBT is. A lot of people know what CBT is.
Yeah.
However, I do also think there's a time and a place to also, as I maintain and I said before, and we discussed, to allow yourself to feel those things. It doesn't mean that you're endorsing negative self-talk or whatever, but if that's a feeling that you have, and the thought that you have,
thought that you have instead of a feeling,
it's okay to feel sad and to feel confused about how you see yourself. And I personally think in talking about those feelings, it allows you to have power. And let's also remember that feelings aren't always something that can be logicked away or thought away. Feelings can be innate and something, like I say, that's that knee-jerk reaction that's more of your primal brain that thinks negatively and looks to those negative things. It's okay to sometimes, I think, just allow those and not necessarily, like I say, ruminate, but to be okay just to sit with them.
No, I completely agree. I know you're sort of using the words feelings and thoughts interchangeably there. I think more of what I was coming across is that, can we distance them? Completely agree. We all have the capacity to feel happy up here and then thus sad down here, because it's a spectrum. Anxiety, sadness, frustration, resentment, these are all feelings that we all have the capacity to feel. So acting as if we can't feel them and then not speak about them is ridiculous. So it's completely fair that we can. However, more of what I was saying was with our thoughts. It's not about, if you feel a thought coming into your brain, blocking it off and saying, no, that's not happening, that's not allowing it to flow, but allowing it to flow through you, not control the thought, but knowing that that thought isn't you, and not attaching yourself to, feeling that thought or thinking that thought, I should say, not judging it, but then also, if you can, reinforce with positive self-talk. We have seen, and there's research which we can speak about, how even in quick, small amounts of self-talk or positive self-talk can help reinforce behaviors, not to get rid of the feeling sad, but your thoughts, I believe, that we have more control over. Feelings, completely agree. We all have the capacity, but I do want to try at least challenge you and say that I think we can separate our thoughts and our feelings.
I don't know that they're inseparable in that sense. I think so. The innate thought that I have about myself that's self-deprecating, I think it's married to sadness. The self-deprecating thought. It doesn't mean that I'm being deterministic and I always need to feel sad about it. But it's the process. So I think what I'm thinking is the process. So that's the thought that I have, which then leads me to be sad. But I can then sit in that sadness for a moment, but then also challenge that thought at the same time as being sad about it, and then proactively work against it, while also acknowledging that I am sad about it.
Of course.
And that's okay. However, moving forward, I can challenge it and then move to a more neutral, if not happy space. With work from cognitive structuring and positive self-talk and those sorts of things. I don't know if that's answered your question. I don't see it to be like this is the negative thought that I have, which can be associated with an emotion. If I just restructure that thought, then I don't have to feel that emotion. I see it more of a sort of a process. Like, they are kind of married to each other. Thinking I'm ugly is a sad thing to think. Therefore, I feel sad about it. But it doesn't mean that I always have to feel sad. But because I'm then coming in and restructuring that thought or challenging that thought. But that sadness is still there in the first instance. And if it's there in the first instance, I don't want to ignore it and say that it's not there, because it is there. But it doesn't mean that I'm not trying also to overcome that thought.
So when you say that they're married, do you think that one comes first, or do you think that they're there simultaneously at the same time?
Well, according to the cognitive behavioural theory, the thought comes first.
Yeah, and then the feeling stems from it.
Yes.
So in that way, then, if we're
I don't know if I fully agree with
no,
that
I'm not sure either.
because sorry, carry on.
No, but well, then leaning on that through that theory, is it then saying because we can control our thoughts, then we almost have the ability to control our emotion? Is that what it's saying?
Control thoughts.
Because if the thought comes first, if you have the ability to control, i.e., shut out negative emotion or negative thoughts, you can then thus not feel negative emotion. Is that what it's saying?
Yeah, according to the theory, if you can, the whole CBT is restructuring your negative adversarial thoughts, so then you feel better about whatever that stimulus is, and therefore behave better towards it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I mean,
I don't think that the therapy is ever trying to get you to pretend that those feelings
Feel
aren't
happy the
there
whole time.
associated
Yeah.
with. It's just it's acknowledging that those thoughts lead to adversarial
Yeah.
perspectives or feelings, and saying how can those thoughts that lead to that be reshaped so they don't always lead to. It's not. I don't think it's ever trying to sort of completely always quash out
No.
feeling sad, but I do also think I don't. Going back to your question just before, I don't always think that the thought comes first. I think we know that the amygdala.
Yeah.
The amygdala is part of the brain, and it's more within the limbic system, so it's within the core, smaller, the inner part of the brain, which from a biological perspective is what evolved first, and therefore it's the more primal part of your brain, and therefore it's the more reactive, it's the more survival instinctual part of your brain.
Yeah.
I think I'm not a neuroscientist, or a neurobiologist or whatever.
No.
But that part of your brain is the knee jerk. It's the shortcut. So it's not the thinking part. And that part of your brain reacts to things and gives you emotional reactions. It's then the cognitive part, which is like the prefrontal cortex in the higher part of your brain, which then comes in. So for me, in that logic, from a biological perspective, the amygdala is reacting.
The emotions come first.
Yes.
Yeah, I would almost more agree with that. I'd like to speak more on that. Using the example, I know I've not spoken about it. It was just last week when we were in Morocco. I was getting news every day about my nana, hearing about how she was going on, and we had a good conversation up on the balcony, didn't we? It was a very, very emotional conversation. Tears were shed, very much so. And I remember the feeling was just I was sad. I was really sad about the whole situation. I was crying, but in that feeling sad, I was very much talking about it. The thought going through my mind, which I spoke to you about, was how beautiful is it that we can feel this depth of emotion? How beautiful is it that we get to feel how sad we feel, because it shows how much we love this person, and it shows how much love there is in the park for everyone. So for me, in my mind, just using that example there, the emotion was there for me first. I was just sad. Objectively, I was in a very much of a sad state. But my thoughts there were also, not that I was controlling my thoughts, but the thought coming over me was more of a positive thought as well. My mind went to a place of, this is so beautiful that I can feel this thing. This is so beautiful that I get to have this moment with you, with my family. For me, then, that using that as an example, I can say that I had this emotion. The thought wasn't necessarily tied to it, but it was a more of a positive thought as well. Yeah. It's why when we were back in the curry house, I was challenging, is always being sad tied to a negative thought, or can we have control over our thoughts? But we're not neurobiologists.
No, but it's a really nice reflection.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think this is a really nice human experience that you've had, that there's sadness there, that is an innate feeling, that response that you were having, but how you've been able to see the beauty in that sadness.
Yeah.
Thinking how beautiful it is.
Yeah. It's a thought.
I do subscribe. I do believe that the sadness inherently, yes, we're adding logic to how beautiful it is, but there is still some sort of, which I can't put words to, but some sort of internal feeling which isn't pleasant
No.
with sadness.
Is that a thought or a feeling though? Is what I'm trying to differentiate.
For me, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
Your body's, you're literally crying,
Yeah.
and your heart rate, you know, then there's
Yeah.
the sympathetic nervous system potentially reacts where, you know, potentially, you know, heart rate goes up, adrenaline, fight or flight, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Not always, but if
hormones.
you're feeling a sadness,
Yeah.
which are all internal responses.
Yeah.
Yes, you're then adding the positive logic,
Yeah.
which is really beautiful to do.
Yeah.
But I wonder, and I don't know the answer, these emotions, which are potentially, in my opinion, driven internally, innately, whether, yes, we're adding that logic later, but do they come with sort of a default positive, negative side?
What thought associated to them?
No, internal sort of reactions.
Oh,
so like when you're happy, that something waves over you and you can't even explain it. It's just like, I feel my body feels warm right now, and my heart is fluttering and I've got butterflies.
So we associate positivity to it.
Physiological things that feel good in our body.
Well, then maybe it's important for us to try and challenge what, as I think it's more of a Western society and culture, associate positivity to happiness and negativity as sadness. There was a really, really good interview I watched a while back. It was this, I'm pretty sure he was a monk, and I know we were speaking about how we can't all be monks in these mountains who are in this enlightened state, but this monk was being interviewed, and he was asking, "Are you happy?" And he was pausing for a little bit of time, and he basically came back and said, "I don't know how to answer that, because for me, happiness isn't the goal. Peace is. Happiness is just as much there as sadness is. As we've just said, we have an innate feeling, a good feeling of when we feel of when we feel happy. It's, you feel brighter, lighter, you feel like you can spread more joy. Now, do we associate that to positivity? Very much so.
Yeah.
But that means that we then have to associate the opposite, sadness, to negativity. Whereas it might be interesting to try and challenge that, saying there can be just as much positivity to sadness, to those feelings, because it shows that we can feel it. Whereas the actual positivity is how much peace do you have versus chaos, peace and chaos. That could be an interesting one to look at.
Yeah.
I know it's not what we're talking about today, but it's about challenging what we associate the goal. Is chasing happiness the goal? I don't think so. I don't think you think so either.
Finding joy in the everyday, though.
Oh, there we go. Imagine there's a podcast for that. I'd listen to that straight away.
I could do with boosting my mood.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah. Feeling every emotion, that's what we're here to do.
Exactly that.
And not running away from them, which is exactly what it sounds like this interview was saying. Which is exactly what we're here to do, and why positive self-talk is part of all of this.
It is. Network
of things that we go through.
It's plethora, it's myriad.
It is, and positive self-talk is very helpful in all of the above. I personally come from positive self-talk in a way of, like I've very much already outlined, I'm not just there using positive self-talk as a tool to ignore,
fend off,
or to pretend that those feelings aren't there or those thoughts aren't there.
Of course not.
It's more of a process of, okay, those negative beliefs sit there, but also so do these positive beliefs, and they hopefully, yes, these positive ones can outshine these ones, but I'm not trying to deny them or say that they don't exist, because I would be lying to myself and my brain. But I can also, as CBT works towards, I can focus on these more, so then I give them more attention, more space, and I'm constantly practicing that, so then these ones that are there can stay there and be there because they exist, but they also don't proportionally take up so much space. And it's like sorry, I'm going off on a massive tangent, but it's like pretending grief isn't real. We know that when you experience a loss or death of someone, that grief never leaves you, and no form of therapy tries to pretend that grief isn't there. It's all about working around it and how we can shape our lives around those things. And I believe the same with negative self-beliefs. They're always there, and it's not something we can personally, I don't think we can ever get rid of them, but how can we shape our lives, and how can we shape our cognition and thinking to live around them, so we can be happy. And I think it's nice to feel that joy and feel that confidence, which is why, full circle, from saying 2 weeks ago, I think I'm ugly, I da 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 da. Those things exist in reality in my brain. However, I also have all of these positive thoughts about myself,
Yeah.
which are beautiful. And notice when you asked me 3 things I'm proud of, they were all my qualities about either myself or how I treat other people, and not about my appearance, because that's what's important, really.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking to some evidence, I think would be helpful
Would be good to do, yeah.
on the positive self-talk, and I think both of us for this, which you can obviously tell already from how we've been speaking, we're both sort of fascinated by the neuroscience of it,
Yes.
and how the
Yeah.
neuroscience plays such a key part in
Yeah.
the influence of positive self-talk, or how positive self-talk helps us.
Yeah.
So I guess breaking it down for those that aren't neuroscientists, and don't get me wrong, I know I have a PhD, but neuroscience is not my strength either. So we're all learning here.
We're all here to learn.
So we have the prefrontal cortex, which I've already mentioned. It's one of the higher areas of the brain. Specifically also the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and these areas is crucial in higher order cognitive functions like decision making, goal setting, and emotional regulation. So we're thinking higher order thinking, these more complex things like setting targets, setting goals, thinking critically. These are all processes that functional fMRI, magnetic resonance imaging, functional magnetic resonance imaging scans of the brain basically show that when we are doing these tasks, thinking critically, goal setting, this part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, lights up because it's active and it's working. Positive self-talk recruits this region to help override the more impulsive and self-critical thoughts that are generated deeper in our brain, in the emotional centers, such as, like we've already mentioned, the amygdala, which is way down in the limbic system, deeper in our brain, that the more primal part of our brain. A study by Golden et al. In 2009, just as one of hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of this empirical evidence, which is very well supported and documented now, used fMRI studies, scans, to examine participants who engaged in cognitive reappraisal tasks, which is a key part of cognitive behavioural therapy. But cognitive reappraisal is that positive self-talk and giving yourself appraisal and speaking positively to yourself. So they looked at scans in participants who were engaging in this positive self-talk activity, and they found increased activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and a reduced activation in the amygdala at the same time. So it was interesting to see, not only was when people were activating a positive self-talk, the increased activity in this area of the prefrontal cortex, but importantly, the reduced activity in this area, which again evidence shows is more associated with the negative self-talk, indicating a successful regulation of negative emotion via the intentional thought reframing, and actually intentionally working on.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So it's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, through our thoughts, through our internal dialogues, we can then thus shape how our emotions are actually regulated. We can actually shape how our brain reacts to it.
Yeah, according to this evidence.
Wow.
So your brain is literally calming itself down through this structured language and this structured thinking.
Unbelievable. How does that sit then in terms of, because I know something that we're really big on is, if you have this feeling, or if you have this feeling, you just, of course we want to speak about it, we want to let it sit there as well, versus what this evidence is saying is actively take, or sort of proactively talk to yourself in a way that would reduce this emotion. How much of that would we see as blocking out or ignoring versus trying to control your emotion?
I don't know, because for me, I can only speak to my experience.
That's what we're here to do.
Like I've already mentioned, I personally think it's important to allow all of its space.
Yeah.
It's just the level at which you sort of ruminate on it and sort of go into it. I think here, saying the evidence showing that the amygdala processing or the amygdala activity was reduced during this task of positive self-talk implies that you can squash that out, but the amygdala is always there, and
of course,
I don't know, maybe deeper more functional studies have shown that you can actually completely retrain the amygdala. I don't think that that's the case, and I'm getting in an area that I don't have too much knowledge about, But personally, again, just from my own life experience, I think that it's important to allow yourself to feel those things that maybe are more driven from a primal place.
Yeah.
So you can just take their power away. And I think feeling them takes the power away in itself.
Of course.
And then cognitively restructuring it.
It is interesting to hear how, though, proactively thinking and changing the way that you talk will actually have a change in the way that our brain will function, thus how we're feeling as well.
But this conversation here, this is prefrontal cortex processing right now, which we're doing. Our brains are at higher order thinking in this moment, which in itself potentially is, I don't know, the evidence, potentially reducing this more primal, more negative focused amygdala functioning. While we're on amygdala, it's probably important to talk about the amygdala itself and what the amygdala is saying and why. Basically, research is showing, again, from an evolutionary perspective, my favorite perspective.
It is,
we are born with this negativity bias, which comes predominantly from the amygdala. So it's evolved our amygdala in our brain. Science believes, or the evolutionary theory believes, that as an evolutionary response, so it's evolved to detect threats and help us survive. It forms part of, like I say, the limbic system, which is the emotional reactive part of the brain, often referred to as the primal brain. It's been adapted to over-detect threats, so it's there to over-detect threats because, again, if you think we need to survive, so we need to be hyper-vigilant to all the threats, and therefore it's led to a negativity bias, the tendency to focus more on danger, on criticism, and negative outcomes than the positive ones. So we're literally, in essence, hardwired to focus on the negative things as opposed to the positive sides of things. And that comes from tangible threats to life, but then now when we have all of these other stimuli to everything, to what someone says
a
to
modern
you,
version.
Psychopaths what social media is saying.
Of course, psychopaths, like, evidence has shown that their amygdala is produce activity in there, right?
Yes, so this is where I find it fascinating, and this is part of my PhD research. So I won't speak about psychopathy because that's not a diagnosable disorder. However, conduct disorder, which is a mental disorder observed in youth and adolescence, which is what my PhD was on. It's not, so I don't want this to be sort of quoted, but colloquially, it's kind of seen as a precursor to antisocial personality disorder in adults. So to have a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder in adulthood, you have to have had a diagnosis of conduct disorder in childhood. Now, antisocial personality disorder, just stick with me here, is what is heavily overlapping with psychopathy. It's grandiose thoughts about yourself, lack of empathy, impulsivity, all those things that are also defined within psychopathy. Bless you.
Thank you.
So what I'm coming on to say is conduct disorder, which is what I know, is a childhood precursor to antisocial personality disorder. Also linked with psychopathy. There are two versions of conduct disorder, and interestingly, research has shown that these two versions, amygdala functioning significantly varies between these two different versions of conduct disorder. Conduct disorder is antisocial behavior, violence, aggression, deceitfulness, theft, real severe violence and aggression. People I worked with, unfortunately, even took the lives of their siblings, put their parents in hospital, that sort of severity, or while their parents are trying to support them. There's conduct disorder with limited pro-social emotions. This is just extra fancy language for the sake of being complicated. I apologize. Or there's conduct disorder without limited pro-social emotions. So basically, putting that in layman's terms, there's conduct disorder with empathy or without empathy. And the ones who have conduct disorder without empathy are more proactive in their aggression. They are more vindictive. They don't care about upsetting people. And it's more vicious and violent. The ones with empathy are more reactive. They see threats. They react to those threats. And it's a lot more sort of quick reaction, aggression to what I perceive to be someone confronting me, for example. Where the amygdala comes in, which might make sense, is the ones without empathy have underactive functioning in their amygdala.
Yeah.
Underactive emotional processing, flat affect, don't care when they're upsetting someone because they're not feeling those emotions. They don't feel the threats. They don't see the threats, which is all from the amygdala and the functioning in the amygdala. The youth with conduct disorder who have the empathy, they have significantly overactive amygdalas or functioning in the amygdala.
Wow.
Is this following?
I think so. Yeah.
So the
activity in the amygdala is directly correlated to
associated with these different subdiagnoses of conduct disorder.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Our amygdala is there to detect threat. If we have an overactive amygdala, we are reactive. We see threats and we react to those threats, and therefore are aggressive in retaliation to a threat. And that's the more. We also feel emotions, and that's the more side of conduct disorder where they have empathy and they have the pro-social emotions.
Yeah.
The other side of conduct disorder, which is the other diagnosis without empathy, is the underactive amygdala.
Is that the psychopathy?
Technically linked with psychopathy by several degrees of separation in adulthood. Yes. So to answer your question in a very long way, psychopathy, yes, is linked with the lack of empathy, lack of emotional regulation and processing, which is linked with reduced amygdala functioning, the emotional recognition, the threat sensitivity.
Yeah.
We're not so literally scared about the consequences of our actions because we don't have so much of a threat sensitivity. Our amygdala is under functioning. One of many different bits of research into the risks and causes of not only conduct disorder but antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy. But yes, it all comes partly back to amygdala functioning.
So with the amygdala, is it fair to say it's all really just about that balance between underactive and overactive?
Well, it's not all just about that. I don't want to negate things like trauma experiences.
Of course. Nurture.
Yes, and
triggering these predispositions.
Yes, education, peer exposure, social learning theory, all these other parts of psychology which are heavily influential in our development, and research also supports their influence on things like conduct disorder and psychopathy. However, in terms of a neuroscience perspective, amygdala heavily influential.
It's really interesting because that almost segues me onto this piece of evidence.
Please.
In terms of a compelling finding in neuroscience for positive self-talk is that it's basically the distanced self-talk or referring to yourself in the third person. So it's known as the third person effect.
Yeah.
So there's been research showing that basically using your own name activated less amygdala activity, indicating that psychological distance through language changes how our brain experiences emotional stress.
Love that.
So essentially, if you're in a situation where it's emotionally stressful, using your name in the third person, so for instance, myself saying, "Come on, Charlie, you can do this, you are strong, you're confident," all these things, actively using your name in the third person, basically, helps your brain experience less emotional stress, as opposed to saying, "I can do this, I can do this." It's quite interesting. The self-distancing theory, it basically, emotional experiences are typically processed from a self-immersed perspective, which amplifies the emotional reactivity. So distancing yourself allows us to process these negative emotions in a less emotionally charged way, which then leads to better coping, emotional regulation as well.
I love that. It makes so much sense as well.
It all stems from the amygdala. It does. And genuinely, it's actually something that I do. I'm not even trying to push some sort of, I do this, I do that.
Yeah.
When we looked at this research, it genuinely sat with me like thinking, I know I can think back to whenever I've been in times of stress or emotional challenge in general.
Yeah.
I can think back to me literally speaking to myself as if I'm the third person saying, "Come on, Charlie, you can do this." I think it also sits quite well with the idea of you observing these emotions or observing these feelings or thoughts, is just having it there, in front of you quite objectively. You can look at it and say, "Come on, Charlie, you can do this. Look at it there." It's like you're almost out of your own body. it allows for more regulation of my own emotions as well. And it's research, Cross et al. 2014.
That's what I find fascinating, is that, we have theory that shows, like you've said, about the self-distancing theory, and how whatever, that being able to distance yourself gives you more of like an objective perspective and less emotional, whatever. But actually, empirical evidence from fMRI studies showing that there's less amygdala activity when you use this technique, and more the prefrontal cortex activity makes sense, because you're cognitive, you're thinking and you're talking to yourself and all those things. But it's, again, the reduced amygdala activity. So again, you're working and actively reframing this thinking, or what's going on. And from scans, we're seeing that it is working. It's just really, really fascinating to me. I find it very fascinating.
The whole thing, it does. I don't want to keep on harping on about it, but it does bring it back to how much control we have over our own thoughts. As it, like that, to me, that is an interesting thing. Not blocking them out, but how much can we control them by observing with them as well, using these techniques that research has shown to have an effect. How much can we actually have a control? Which is our own self-talk.
Yeah, for sure. And it also aligns with the whole, speak to yourself how you'd speak to your friend, those sorts of things.
Exactly.
Like, did you mention the linguistic reframing already?
Linguistic framing. No, so language actually plays a role in shaping your own perception. So basically, using your name shifts the mental frame from "this is happening to me" to "this is a situation I'm observing and managing."
That's what's important.
Yeah.
It's that even just using that language trains your brain into, like you say, is less of a "I'm a victim of the situation" to I'm observing this, and this is something that I can control because I'm from the outside, as opposed to I'm the key player. It's
all about me.
And it's all revolving around me. Actually, I can be outside of this, and I can control this a little bit. Again, with balance and with caution. I don't think you can always control all these things, and you can't just be like, oh, let me positive self-talk, or let me say, come on, Charlie, out of every situation. It's okay to feel grief. It's okay to feel like you're a rubbish person sometimes. That's, I think, okay, and we're allowed to do that. But also, there's a time and a place, as we said before, to then pick ourselves up and say, okay, I felt that. Now, Charlie, how can I feel good about myself? Charlie, you're a good person. You're this, that, and the third.
Completely agree. It's good that when you get to that point, you have these sorts of these techniques in your arsenal to fall back on, to say, okay, I'm processing it, I'm fine to sit with this, but how can I actively work through it? It's the framing, it's the working. And as you just said there, talk to yourself how you talk to your best friend. If you can actively, say your name as if you're your own best friend, give yourself advice, you can then observe it and sit with that feeling or thought more objectively and work through it.
It sounds, I can see people, saying that sort of thing is wishy-washy, but it's literally based in evidence that if you can
Research shows it's true.
If you're speaking to yourself and saying, Marcus, even in a stress, not necessarily about positive self-talk or being self-deprecating, in a work stress or whatever, Marcus, you can do this, you've got this skill, it will pass, all of these things, come on, you've got this. And speaking to yourself in that instance, the second person, not the third person. Again, it feels a bit uncomfortable or a bit sort of happy clappy, but if evidence is showing it works, have you not
heard happy clappy?
Do you pick up what I mean by it?
I do,
yeah. then why not lean into it and use it, and it's worked for you. And one extra extension from that is, I've seen on a TikTok trend or whatever, naming your brain.
This is really interesting that you just said that. Really interesting that you just said that.
Why?
There's basically, from what I've seen or heard from someone who's actually involved in the mindset coaching or the mindset space, they literally say, if you can name your brain or name a part of you, or the negative feeling, if you can give it a name and shut it off, then you can actually talk to it and say, okay, this negative thought, I'm going to call him George, for instance, or whatever. George, I appreciate your input and advice, but right now I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to focus on something else. You can compartmentalize it, and it's been actively shown to help you work through it. And it's naming your brain. It puts it, and it allows you to observe whatever the technique is, allows you to sit with it and observe it. It's actually what the Stoics say as well, and I know we're not going to go too much into that because we're going off what this evidence is saying here, but sitting with it, observing your thought, whether it's part of your thoughts or feelings or your brain in general, allowing to observe it helps you work through it in a much more constructive way.
It makes so much sense.
Is that a TikTok thing though? Is it naming your
Well,
brain?
I think so, yeah. There's this girl who goes on a scooter. I think I actually saw her once around here.
Oh, cool.
Um, anyway, regardless, she goes around on a scooter doing these positive affirmations and
Yes.
whatever, and giving people advice. And one of her things was saying that she names her brain, so when she's feeling a certain way, she can, exactly like you're saying, not detach, but speak to her
Frame.
brain,
Yeah.
reframe in a from a third person perspective, and say, okay, this is how you're feeling today, but not allow that to define her or
Yeah.
whatever. I just thought it was really fun. We actually, I don't even remember we did that. We were speaking about that run club, Run Your Mind Run Club, ages ago about
Oh
naming our
yeah.
brains. And I can't remember why I named my brain, but
I think mine was like Herbert the Third.
yeah,
Oh, we were, weren't we?
yeah.
Yeah, Herbert the Third. I think I named
But
my brain.
anyway,
I was getting off on a tangent here.
I think it's also nice to say that we've spoken a lot about neuroscience and the
Of
different
course.
brain functioning, but just on a general sense as well, there's research that just generally shows positive self-talk or participants who engage in positive self-talk
Yeah.
or elements of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, were found to have significantly reduced levels of stress, anxiety, depression, or markers of all of those things,
Yeah.
and increased markers of things like optimism and productivity. We'll put the reference, but yeah, Shapira and Mongrain in 2010 is one of, again, thousands of studies that will have looked into this.
Yeah.
But yeah, uh, people worked with individuals, 63 in this example, who were working on self-compassion and optimism. They did all of these tasks on compassion and optimism, and they were compared against people who had a control intervention where they were just asked to write about an early memory and reflect on that early memory, and they were given like a battery of different tests and 1, 3, and 6 month follow-up. And even at the 6 month follow-up, these individuals, compared to the control people who just did a self-reflection task,
Yeah.
the ones who engaged in positive self-talk and an optimism task, were found to have higher levels of things like the productivity and optimism and self-acceptance, and significantly lower levels of self-criticism, depression, levels of relationship dependency, even anxiety. All of these different tests showed
Yeah.
that all of these adversities were reduced significantly at 6 months compared to people who didn't engage in these
Wow.
activities. And I think it just helps bring us back to, yes, we've gone into the specifics of different elements of positive self-talk and where they come from and things, but just generally how beneficial it can be for not only just being happy, but even things like here, like relationship dependency, or your depression levels and anxiety levels
Yeah.
are all found in this research, but countless other studies as
Yeah.
well. And it's so important to have these elements of positive self-talk. And I'm always a champion for other people and saying, this is how you're amazing, and try to, as such, I know I could always be better at doing it to myself and
Yeah.
try to do more so, which has also been really helpful in our friendship, because we're each other's big champions.
Really interesting that you just said that, because I think it highlights a bigger, broader topic, that these things that happen, whether it's your relationship, marriage, a good job, those things don't bring you to happiness. It's your own internal dialogues will stem these things which we associate with happiness, but actually it's how you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Your own positive outlook on life will then bring those things, if that's what you want, of course.
Yeah.
There's a book I'm reading. It's Ikigai, it's called, or it's the belief in Ikigai. I'll just quickly speak on it. It's basically a Japanese a sort of term that is used for, it doesn't directly translate, but it's basically happiness in life, a sort of key to happy life. Within Ikigai, there are 5 pillars. I won't list them all, but one of the pillars is small things, basically starting out small and just appreciating the small things in life, and little things in that will roll over. And so essentially it can be small little daily things or practices of gratitude or positive self-talk. If you do this every day, just in a small way, it'll build up, and the bigger things look after themselves. It's what we say, focus on the small things, the bigger things look after themselves. Overall, if you do this, you have better ikigai. Research has shown from this book that the more ikigai someone has, the better their sort of relationships are, the better job they have, the more content they are with their own community, their lifestyle, the longer they live as well. It all ties into the blue zones. I know we can probably speak on that in a separate episode. But yeah, it basically says that your own positive self-talk, how you frame your own mind, actually has a tangible impact to all of these markers that we see to bring happiness, whether it's your community, your relationships, your jobs, all these things. So it's what you were saying. Effectively, what I was picking up was that these things actually are a byproduct of your own self-talk.
Very important. And I think thinking critically about that, one might argue, well, yeah, you're more happy, so you're gonna answer a survey saying that you have a happier relationship and you're more happy in work. But I think sort of thinking from a rounded perspective, this study, what I think is one of the good measures that it used is relationship dependency, which isn't necessarily measuring your happiness, because there's a correlation there, but the direction of that correlation we wouldn't know. Whereas this is more of the dependency is showing sort of potentially. Someone might argue that dependency is actually a good thing, but dependency, is sort of if they have that reduced dependency, it shows the independence and the ability to function independently and be able to just find all of the things in your life by yourself, and that relationship complements that, but isn't what's vital and needed. And that's why I think that was a helpful marker there, because all of those other things about like job satisfaction and relationship happiness or satisfaction overall, that could be, you could be saying, that's, I'm happy in that because I'm happier overall because of Ikigai. We don't know the direction there, if that makes sense. Whereas something like relationship dependency is, I think it allows you to understand a bit more that...
It was, so I believe the research actually looked at it was 50,000 participants, so it was very much a wide range. It wasn't necessarily looking how happy you were, but just overall your marital status. And I know that's very much older sort of thought of being married means it's a good thing, which it necessarily isn't if that's not what you want. But I think from the cohort that they were looking at, everything, your job status, your marital status, things that we can objectively see as, is it better, like, are you, whatever it is, are you married at an older age, if that's what you're wanting. It was looking at this wider group of people and saying the more Ikigai they have, the typically better they are functioning in all sorts of different realms. But it comes down to what you were saying with your own self-talk as well. The little things.
Very, very, very cool.
Does
I'm
lend
looking forward
itself.
to reading that book.
Yes, I'll be done with it soon, so you can read it.
Yeah, you're storming through it, aren't you?
I'm loving it. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Again, it does lend itself to affirmations, manifestation, gratitude, all things that we can tangibly practice that have been seen to have a real world impact on our own lives.
For sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to talk about mood boosts.
Mood boost. What's our mood boost for the week? Yes, that's lovely.
Sure.
How interesting. What was your mood boost for the week?
My mood boost is for my mum. She got 2 chickens this week.
Cool.
We used to have chickens growing up in the gardens, and it was lovely. And then for just life stuff happening, that's never been possible since. But yeah, she's got 2 chickens, and it's really nice seeing them in the garden. And my brothers in the family group chat were going through all these different names, and none are coming to mind, but obviously them being the comedy geniuses they are, were just very quickly reeling off all of these different chicken names that could have been.
That's quite funny.
Starsky and Clutch, no, Cluck, or I can't. That was a really rubbish one. There were so many different funny
Starsky
ones.
and Cluck.
But yeah, so Jennifer Lopez.
Henna.
Yeah, it was really nice,
Chicken
and
Joe.
I think that's lovely, and just some new family members, little chickens.
That's
in
great.
the
I love a
family. So,
chicken.
it's a little mood boost. Yeah.
Fresh eggs every day. That's great.
Yeah. What about you?
My mood boost is more simple, but again, as we say, the mood boost can be as simple as they can. We were walking back from our swimming training yesterday in Hampstead Heath, and the sun was shining through these leaves, through this weeping willow, and it was enough to actually make me stop in my tracks and just stand there and watch it for about a minute, which was beautiful. I can't lie. The sun coming through, golden hour. It's like, weeping willow the leaves were falling gracefully. It was just beautiful. Just seeing the sun rays come through the leaves. It was just the beauty of it. Genuinely, I just sat there watching it for like a minute, just in awe.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That happens daily in some place, everywhere. Of course, you can always be in a great place, but that somewhere in the world is always happening. Whether it's a sunset, a sunrise, sun bouncing off the water, beauty everywhere.
It is.
And be able to recognize that. I loved. So simple one, but that was my mood boost of the week.
Nice.
Boosted my mood.
Lovely job.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that one.
That was a good episode.
It was lovely.
How interesting.
Yeah.
I've learnt a lot.
Fascinating. As
Fascinating
always.
stuff.
Our conversations always are. Being confident in that.
Wow. No, they are always great. God, we are good.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're still here, thanks for joining us.
For being here.
Let us know what you think of this.
Please do. In the comments, make sure you say what's wrong in this room.
Don't point.
I was going to say exactly what it was.
Hopefully, if you're still here, you might have got a little bit of a cheat there.
Yes.
Marcus, but regardless.
Regardless.
I'll turn off the audio.
I'll
for
do
just
some ASMR while you